Hey, good morning. Thank you all for coming out this morning. I always like to start out by, I'll share a little bit about myself, but it's always nice to get a feel for who's in the room, kind of what brought you here. If there's one particular thing that you're interested in learning from today, I want to try and make sure I can hit on it. If it's not part of what I'm going to hit on, then I do have time afterwards to visit with people if you guys want to talk a little bit more. My name is Gunnar. I'm a reformed stockbroker and corporate executive. About 6 years ago, I decided after 25 years in those industries, I was tired of it and I wanted to do something different. And I saw a huge need in Oklahoma City. There were a lot of businesses that were kind of struggling to grow and build their business. And it's not because they weren't working hard, it's because there were things that they just weren't aware of. And one of those was really how to leverage the internet. And I said, you know, I like to educate people. Let me get out there and do something. So I started my company, and it's been a wonderful ride so far for the last 6 years. I've had a lot of fun. I primarily work with B2B businesses, but I have some B2C customers as well. They serve consumers. And so all the concepts that I share today will have some degree of applicability, whether you work directly with consumers or whether you work directly with businesses. And so look forward to sharing some of those things with you. If I can, let me start with this table and ask you to introduce yourself real quick. Tell me what you do and what brought you here.
What brought me was the title,
Okay.
the subject. My name is Jerry Shepard. I am a real estate broker of Metro First Realty Premier. This is last month was my 30th year in the business. I have about 18, 19 realtors. I'm a part of a franchise that's only in Oklahoma, but I still need the exposure, and I would like to be able to leverage the internet.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Let me go to you next.
I'm Chloe, and I work for R&D Remodeling LLC. Well, my husband and I own it, and we're just wanting to grow our business. We started about 2.5 years ago, and we're just trying to.
Wonderful. Thank you. How about yourself?
Tammy Reeser. I'm currently unemployed, come from a customer service retail background, 35 plus years.
Fabulous.
Need to get on the internet just like everybody else.
Well, good. There's plenty of opportunity.
Randy Jackson. I currently work for Mercury Insurance.
Okay.
And I try to keep up with all this stuff. Just came by to make sure I ain't missing anything.
Wonderful. I'll shift right behind you then.
I'm John Valdez with Discount Remodelers. I just work for the company, but for 25 years, they've used commercials on TV, and it's not doing like it's not producing like it used to. So I'm just trying to figure out different avenues.
Sure. Understood. Jason.
Jason Thomas with JTC Tradesman Development. We're in business to solve the trades gap, skills gap problem. We take millennial workers and put mentoring, coaching, training, safety training, and job training, and do it through a 90-day temp to hire window. We've moved the needle from 27% retention rate to 85% using our training methods.
It's pretty amazing.
Call our development.
Great. Susan?
Hi, I'm Susan Moring. I work for OU. I manage websites and social media presence for a number of our programs, and known Gunnar for a long time and never been to one of his events, so I'm just here to try to learn some stuff.
Glad to have you.
Hey, Lisa Minow with Aries Law Firm. We don't really advertise much, so I thought, well, if we want to start advertising, internet's the way to go.
Sure. What type of law does it practice?
We do estate planning, so probate and all of that, wills, trusts, and then anything with debt, bankruptcy, debt consolidation,
Sure.
negotiations and settlements and things like that.
Well, there's plenty of people who need that kind of help. Next.
Catherine Bell, I'm a business partner with Haley Simino, and we have the unique challenge of we're in a profession that has all sorts of other rules as well that correlate with advertising, and so we need to be new and we need to be fresh and advertise the way that people are looking now, which is on the internet, but also figure out how that works for a law firm.
Sure. Understood. Let me go right to your back there. I'll go to you.
Me?
Yes.
I'm Rachel Carter. We're with, this is Karen Ray too. Sorry. We're with Success Management. And we're just looking to grow our business. We do property management. We do single-family homes, multi-family housing, small offices, mobile home parks, 2 different things. And we're just looking to acquire new properties and try to figure out how to get our business out there to potential owners.
So you really are trying to solve two sides of the business.
Yeah, and bring in new tenants too, so yes.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. Kelly?
I'm Kelly Ingram. I'm with Catch 21. We provide routine and payment resolution to banks and credit unions, and like all the rest of you, just here to learn and hopefully find some new online marketing strategies.
My name is Laura Adair. I'm with Catch 21 as well. I am part of the business development team, and I'm just kind of here to learn some new tips and tricks and hopefully learn how to better target our audience.
Great. Mark?
I'm Mark Ferguson, roofing and construction. And since nobody's using the yellow pages anymore, I'm trying to catch up and find out where they're going. So the digital doesn't sounds good to me.
Awesome. Let me go to you next.
I'm Carrie Gilbert. I'm a realtor with Red Bed Realty in Edmond, and I'm just here to learn more about, I've got a Facebook page, but that's pretty much all I know how to do. So I'm just here to learn.
Well, good. Yourself, sir.
Yeah, my name is Kartik Shaha. I'm a professional engineer retired, and I'm also a CPA retired. I have a company called Web CPE, and the company offers continuing professional education courses to CPAs. They did those courses to renew their license every year.
Wonderful.
And we are nationally recognized. Our courses are accepted in all 50 states, and we are on the internet.
Wonderful.
We are here to see how I can improve my marketing.
Sounds good. And yourself?
My name is Justin Reyes. I'm from Reyes Rural Family Company, and we're a multi-service company. We do construction, we do remodeling, landscaping, and housekeeping. And the reason I'm here is to increase my market and increase my sales as well, because I'm planning on starting another business as well.
The entrepreneur bug is certainly well and alive, which is great to see. And so Better Business Bureau is a great place for entrepreneurs as well. I love the diversity of what we've got in the room in terms of the types of businesses, what you're after, and so forth. So I encourage you to ask questions as we go along. If I think that I'm going to have the answer to that coming up, I'm going to put you on hold, but otherwise I'll try and answer your questions. If I don't have enough time to answer all your questions today, I don't have to run out of here right afterwards, so I've got time to visit with anybody. Happy to do that. I will tell you, too, that you don't have to worry about taking copious notes. You can have access to all of the slides. Just write down this address, and you'll be able to download not only the slides, but some other things that I've set up for you as well. The 12 concepts that we're going to talk about today are actually all very well documented within this book, and you're all welcome to have either a hard copy of this book, or if you prefer a Kindle version, we've got the code for you to get a Kindle version of the book as well. Our organization, WSI, is actually a worldwide organization. We have about 1,000 offices in 80 different countries. And we've worked with a lot of companies, learned a lot of things, and tried to capture all of those concepts to say, what are the things that people ask questions about the most? Where do they struggle the most? And that's what we tried to solve for in this book, The Digital Minds, with the 12 concepts that people need to know about. Oftentimes we find that a business has something. It could be they've got the website, could be they've got Facebook, but they're not sure what's the best next step for them. And we try and give you enough information without getting technical about it in the book to help you know, okay, that makes sense. I'm thinking about video. Let me go to the chapter on video, spend 10 minutes reading about what I should know and what questions I should ask. And maybe that gets you started. I'm not here to sell you any services. I'm here to educate. If there's something I can help you with down the road, that's great. But our goal is to make you self-sufficient so that you have confidence in doing these things yourself. Fair enough? Great. So, cutting through the noise. I mean, some of you have said it that we need to do something different because we can't rely on traditional mechanisms anymore. Some of you may have seen this KFC campaign several years ago. Interesting that they've got 1.2 million followers, but they're only following 11 people themselves on Twitter. Did anybody notice this campaign earlier this year? There's a specific reason why they only follow 11 people. Maybe if I show you some of who they are, it might make sense. Do any of these names make sense to you? Who knows who those people are? Jackie.
Victoria Beckham, Spice Girls.
The Spice Girls, okay. So that's 5. Well, here's 6 others. They were very clever in the fact that Kentucky Fried Chicken is based on 11 herbs and spices. And so they followed only 11 people, 6 herbs and 5 Spice Girls. And that caught people's attention. And the person who actually figured that out first and submitted it to them won actually a hand-painted picture of himself with Kentucky Fried Chicken. And he was ecstatic about it. So it's an example of cutting through the clutter and being creative about things. It didn't necessarily cost them anything to go about this, but they were very thoughtful about what they wanted to achieve and the message they wanted, and teasing people to see if they figured it out. And they did. So that's an example. When it comes to the internet, there's a lot of different things. We've already talked about this, so I'm just going to skip through it. There's a lot of different things. I'll share this if you'll just take one and pass it around. Looks kind of like a subway map. We looked at it and said, the internet now, it used to be just this one thing in the middle, which was a website. If you flash back 20 some odd years, that's all that existed. If you go back and look at McDonald's original website, you would be laughing at it right now, going, oh my God, I can't believe that was their website. But things have evolved, and they've gotten a lot more complicated. But they don't have to be complicated for you. And our goal is, how can we simplify things? The purpose of this map is to share with you what all is out there. It doesn't mean, I actually had somebody take it back with them after a presentation and try and check off everything that they were doing. And that can be helpful because it may tell you you're trying to do too many things. But the key is that if you're doing the right things to suit your audience, it doesn't have to be all of these things, but it can be just a couple of the right things. If you travel to another country and you pretend that this is maybe their subway system and you need to get from point A to point B, oftentimes it's easiest if you hire a guide, a tour guide, to help get you there. They know the traffic, they know the time of the trains, things of that sort. The same thing can happen when it comes to the internet. Hiring a Sherpa or a guide can help you make sure that you get on the right trains, forget the things that are going to take you in the wrong direction, and help you do the right thing. So we're hoping today's talk will give you some of that knowledge. So, personas. Who's familiar with the concept of building a persona? Okay, a couple of you. So if you're not familiar with it, what we really mean by this is building out a persona. You talked about target audiences. You have a particular target audience who you're looking to help. Sellers, buyers. You have an audience that you need in terms of apartments and so forth. If you re-roof homes, you have different audiences that you're thinking about. And the goal behind building out a persona is there's a typical kind of person that buys what you sell. So why not map that out and understand that to a greater degree? And it's answering questions about who is he or she? How do they find us? What are the pains that they typically have that you can help solve for? What do they want to know? What is it they don't want? Why would they buy from you? And what can you do to help them? If you can answer those 7 questions, it can really make your thought process a lot easier about where you should be putting your time and energy, because you understand your buyer a lot. And sometimes you may need to sit down with a couple of your buyers and just interview them. People that your existing clients, ask them questions like these, going, what is the pain that we're really solving for you? Sometimes it's not apparent, but if you ask people, they can help tell you that. If you wrote down the address that I put earlier, you're going to find that we actually have a booklet, an ebook in there that helps you go through the process of developing personas, and it's got a template that you can fill out too. So it explains it in much greater detail. But it is something that we find important. So, who are they? I mean, you could be as descriptive as who they are. They're currently renting for the past 2 to 5 years. They're married with 2 kids, at least 1 college graduate, what their income level is, and so forth. How do they find you? Word of mouth. Maybe if they're a bank customer, they have existing deposits. Maybe they found you on the search engine, social. You just go through these things and figure out, what is it that brings a typical customer? And your existing client base is usually a great place to start. As you go through the whole process, you'll develop what we call a persona profile. And it's okay to have more than one. because oftentimes you have different markets. Your commercial side business is going to have a different persona than your rental or your retail renter side of the business. Two different personas, you want to make sure that you have both of those captured. So that's a starting point. But then as we take a look at the 12, this is an overview. And if you ever buy donuts, they don't just give you 12 and a dozen, right? They give you 13, so I'll give you 13 as well. We'll talk about video because that's certainly a growing trend. These are the 12 things that we're going to talk about sequentially, competitor analysis being one of those. And Mark, you were telling me this is something that you do, is you take a look at your competitors. We absolutely encourage that. So let's talk about that first. What is it that others are saying and doing online? Because if you're starting from ground zero, or even if you're somewhere further along, it helps to understand what your competition is doing. There's an old joke that says, you know, hey, if you're out camping in the woods with a buddy and a bear shows up, you don't have to be faster than the bear, you just have to be faster than your buddy, right? Well, the same thing kind of holds true with the internet, is that you don't have to way outperform somebody. You just have to do enough to outperform them, but maybe do it in the right way. Maybe it's an area that they aren't focused on. Some companies may be very big on search engine, but not doing much on social media. Well, maybe that's an opportunity. Sometimes if you don't see any activity, it also can be a signal that says, did everybody already try this and it didn't work? I don't know. Maybe they just didn't do it right. But those are things that you can look for from a competitive analysis perspective. Is, you know, you expect that your customers are analyzing you. I mean, you do it. You go to a website. How long do you give a website before you go, yep, right or not?
Be quick.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be on average 6 to 8 seconds. Today, yeah, it's certainly much shorter. So how the website looks makes a difference, right? You're already making an assessment on that. Are you better, worse, or the same as the competition? Because if people have a choice and you all show up in the search results, how quickly do they hit the back button? You don't want them to hit on yours. What is the data that you want to collect and understand? What are the things that are important to you to learn about the other businesses? Where are they? What are they doing? What's the geography that they serve? What's the typical client that it looks like they're trying to attract? If you pay attention to the images on a website, sometimes that alone can tell you what type of client they're really looking to attract. Do you see pictures of upscale houses? Do you see pictures of middle income houses? Things of that sort. Those images alone can help people identify, oh, they're talking to me. So those are the types of things to pay attention to. And then establish some benchmarks for ongoing measurement. So if you notice how many people they have as followers on Facebook or on Twitter, that's a benchmark that you can use. Is it growing? Is it shrinking? Make a note of it. Make a note of your own. Is yours growing or is it shrinking? Those are things to pay attention to. So from a website, there's things that we look at: domain age, reputation, web presence, quality of coding, design. Some of this is technical stuff that happens in the background, and we have tools to help assess that. Intuitively, you can look at it. If it takes a long time for the website to load, okay, you know that their site speed is bad. People don't have a tolerance, and neither does Google, for slow websites. So if your website is slow, Google doesn't give you first page ranking. Simple as that. Search engine optimization. If somebody says, I'm looking for real estate, and the website that shows up is about toys, that's a disconnect. That's bad search engine optimization. But if they say, I'm looking to buy a home in Edmond, and Metro First shows up at the top of the list, that's really good search engine optimization. Oh, Metro First, they're top. They must be able to help me. That's a good thing. And there's a number of factors that play into search engine optimization. We'll talk about those in a later chapter here. Advertising. Somebody mentioned the use of paid advertising. Yellow Pages is a classic example of traditional paid advertising. Billboards, other sources out there, TV. Somebody mentioned TV's not working as well as it used to. Those are all traditional advertising methods, but there's several different ones on the web as well. You see the banner ads that come across. Those are pictures that show up with company names and products. Maybe you shopped on Amazon and you looked at something, and for the next week, even if you didn't buy it, that product is following you around. That's called remarketing and retargeting. Certainly a good technique for certain types of businesses. Then there's pay-per-click ads, just the things that you see at the top and the bottom of the search results. There are just many different types of ads but they're not all good for every business. It depends. I have a client who's an optometrist. Paid advertising was not a good solution. It brought in the wrong kind of client. Search engine optimization, on the other hand, was the right solution for them. It brought in the right kind of client. So it can vary in terms of what you're doing. And then social media. There's so many different channels these days. Which one's the right one? And understanding first through competitive analysis, which one are people looking at? How are they engaging? Are they just pushing information out? Are they educating? Or are they actually having a two-way conversation with people? That's what you want to pay attention to when you take a look at the competition. So if you're looking at your pages, if you have a website already, there's a little thing you can type into Google. This is just the word site, and then your URL. And what that's going to return to you is the number of index pages. Now, the top number isn't always accurate. You have to kind of scroll down. But this tells you at an instant how many pages Google thinks that you have on your website. And the reason that's important is because Google likes content. They reward companies that publish relevant content on a recurring and recent basis. And so the more pages you have that they know that you have, the better. Now, it could be that you have a website and this comes back with 0 responses. That's a signal that says Google needs to have you send them a set of instructions called the sitemap to tell them that you have a website and here's the pages on your website, because they don't always find it by themselves. So if you see that you do this and nothing comes back, that's the problem, easily fixed. So what do the search results say? In the red boxes are ads that appear, pay-per-click ads on the top and the bottom. This middle section, the yellow section, is what's called the local results. And so what that means is if Google says that I'm looking for a real estate broker near me, it knows what my physical location is and says, from a proximity standpoint, these are the 3 closest real estate brokers to where you are right now. Now, if I modify that and I say other things like the best real estate broker near me, they may factor in other factors that apply to this. But getting into the top 3 here is something that's very lucrative to do because it's what people see first. Then we move to the blue section, which is what we call the organic results. Every page has 10 organic results on it. So even after the first 3 local results show up, you'll have 10 organic results. In a highly competitive market, you'll have 4 ads on top, and you'll have 3 ads on the bottom. In a less competitive environment, where there's really not a lot of competition, you may not see any ads on the top at all. So it varies by page, and it's dynamic based on the competitiveness of the industry that you're in and the location that you're in, the geography that you're in. So those are things. If you use a browser to understand where you are, if you search for terms that you think people would use to find you, we suggest using the incognito mode in your browser. Do you know how to do that? There's a tool, and the reason for that is that it takes out and it filters out the bias. You've probably searched your website and others like yours a lot in the past. That all adds up in your history, and that influences what you see going forward. So it may show you less accurate results about your own business if it sees that you're searching. But if you go incognito, it says, we don't know who you are. We're going to give you the real results for where you are right now for the type of search that you're getting. That's going to give you the best real result for finding your own business online. So the key takeaway is there's a lot of things you can look at on the competition. Don't overdo it. Just get to understand, what do they look like? Who do we hear about? And the thing is, when it comes to online competition, a lot of people get word of mouth business, but if they don't show up online, nobody else knows about them other than the people that are talking about them. So focus only on the companies that show up online so that you know who you're competing against for the people that aren't familiar with them. People that are typing in the search terms, I need to rent an apartment. Who's showing up for that versus you just asking me going, who would you talk to? And I might tell you somebody entirely different than who shows up as number 1 on the page. Number 2, so we talk about your website being kind of your digital branch to your busiest branch. If you were a bank or some of you said you're a franchise business, you have branches that are out there. There's 7 things that we take a look at. discovery, budget, planning, design and build, test and debug. If you haven't built a website, these are all the things that kind of come into play. They can feel very overwhelming, but they don't have to. There's so many different tools out there that you can do it yourself and do a nice job with a simple website that you can always start somewhere and improve later. The people that struggle are the ones that try and get it perfect right out of the chute and it never gets launched. It's far better to launch a somewhat okay product and learn from it, because you'll find out, are people finding you? Are you finding yourself once you have the website out there? So let's look at this. Responsive is something that's an important standard. If you do any searching on your phone, what responsive means is that the website fits your phone. If you've ever found a website where you have to scroll right or scroll left and how frustrating that is, that's not a responsive website. That's a big no-no these days. People want sites that fit the device that they're using, whether that's a tablet, a phone, or a laptop. It needs to be mobile friendly. This is a Google tool here that you can use to test the mobile friendliness.
Is that the website that you test your website?
It is. Yeah, so if you plug that in, that's a short code, but if you plug that in, you can enter in your website or anybody's. You could even test your competition's website to see, are they mobile friendly.
I see. Thank you.
Then there's another tool that lets you check how fast is your site. Google standard is 1 second. So for every second longer it takes than 1 second for your website to load, Google sees that more negatively. 12 seconds, and this is based on 3G connection speeds because they look at it kind of globally, and they assume that in some parts of the country, that may be the fastest connection speed that's available. So if you may go, well, I got 4G and mine loads in 1 second, but on a 3G connection, if it takes 5 seconds to load, that's problematic. So they'll tell you this. What's also cool is they will diagnose what's wrong with that page and say, here's what you can do to fix it. Maybe the size of the picture that you have is too big. Maybe it's the server speeds. Maybe it's something else. But they'll give you information about your website so that you can go back and make some adjustments to it. Other discovery questions. We talked about buyer persona, understanding, does my site line up with who I think is looking at it? Or is there going to be a disconnect that I'm talking to the wrong person? They go, well, this doesn't look like they serve consumers at all. This looks like it's strictly business people. But if consumers are your core business, that needs to be resolved. What's your primary goal? Don't try to be everything. Kelly, you talked about you've got a great niche in terms of who you serve. But if you tried to get out there and market to the big 50 banks and everybody else, that might confuse your existing market, going, do they really work with community banks, or are they trying to help the big banks? I'm not sure. So if you stay focused on a niche, that helps that niche actually find you, because there's not that many people that do what you do. Site architecture and flow. Think about when you go to a website and you browse through the pages, does the order in which you visit those pages make sense? Or are you sitting there going, where on earth is this? People ask the same thing about your website, so think about that. What would be a natural flow? If somebody comes to me with a high-level question, where should we want them to go, and how easy should we make that? Should we have a video or something else? And then, what would their next question be, and where do we want them to go after that? And that's how you want to try and architect a site, is to think through what's that natural decision-making process that somebody would go from, I have a problem I'm trying to solve, to, it looks like they can help me with this. How do I know for sure that this is the right company to work with? And once I decide that, how do I get in touch with them? And if you can answer those 3 things for your prospects, you've got a really good chance of getting the phone to ring. Copywriting and content plan. Sometimes we come across companies who just post content because they think it's what they have to do. We encourage you to be a little more thoughtful and strategic about it. And that is writing content that's going to be interesting and helpful to your audience. Not just talking about you, but talking about the problems that your customers have, and then how you can help them solve those problems. And sometimes that might be, do you ever go and look at a YouTube video? I'll give you an example. I had a sprinkler problem not too long ago. I wasn't sure how to diagnose it. Sure enough, there's a YouTube video out there somewhere that tells you how to diagnose a sprinkler problem and then what to do about it. Well, it turns out the video that I looked at was from some guy in California, so I couldn't possibly call him to come out and fix it for me, but he would have been the guy I would have called if he was nearby. So if there was a local company that offered that same type of information to help me understand that, they're showing me how to do it myself. But there's certain things where I go, yeah, that's beyond me. I need help with this. But the fact that they've given me that information to educate me is valuable. And that's what a lot of consumers find too, is that if you're willing to give first, they're willing to give back and go, hey, you help me with this. I do fix some of my own appliances, and there's a great website called Appliance Parts Pros out there. They sell me the parts, but they also give me all kinds of videos on here's how you diagnose it, here's how you take it apart, here's how you put it back together. There's probably housewives and others out there who never thought they could do something like that now have new confidence going, hey, I don't have to pay a parts guy or a service guy to come out and do that because they've made it that easy. That's really cool. SEO considerations, this is just thinking back again. SEO sometimes these days has changed. How many have like a Google Home or an Amazon Alexa device or things like that that you use? Do you talk to it the way that you would talk to a search engine 5 years ago and say, coffee shop near me? Or you go, hey Alexa, where's the nearest coffee shop, by such and such? It's more natural language flow. And we're finding that the search engines are responding to that too, so that if you start thinking in terms of natural language questions that come up from people, that's sometimes the way you want to structure your content too, so that it matches the search query. Ideally, if the search result mirrors what the question was, and the page that you bring them to on your website mirrors that question too, they go, my God, these people understand me. That's what I'm looking for. Those are things we encourage you to think about. So it all starts by understanding the audience, making sure your site provides a good experience, especially for your mobile visitors. Does anybody in here have an e-commerce site? Meaning that you actually sell products online. Yours is somewhat that way.
Yeah.
So it's a smaller niche in terms of what we typically work with, but what we're finding is that some of the concepts of e-commerce can apply even to non-e-commerce products, because there's a thought process that people go through when they buy something. And some of the things we learn here can make sense. We talked earlier about if you went to Amazon and you looked at a product but you didn't buy it, there's a chance that product's going to follow you for a certain amount of time during the week until you do buy it. Maybe it's a pair of shoes or something else. That's called remarketing. But remarketing doesn't have to just be about a product. It can be about a service. If you understand that your customer may on average take 6 weeks to make a decision to buy what you sell, that's different than a week to buy a pair of shoes. Well, you don't necessarily want to hound them every single day with an ad that says, talk to us, but there's this kind of ice cube syndrome that happens, that their memory melts away over a period of time. Oh, there was this website I looked at, I can't remember what it was. But if you understand that buying process and you have what we call these remarketing ads out there that you serve up on an occasional basis over that 6-week period of time, you're able to stay in front of that decision-making process. So they don't have to struggle to go, who was the first company that I went to and what is it they do? You're there. It's a subtle reminder. It doesn't have to be in your face. You can make it in your face, but sometimes that backfires. So that's an e-commerce technique that can apply outside of the e-commerce world. Generating interest using email. I know we all get too much email, but you got to admit there's some of them that still work. And for every 10 that you discard, there's probably one that you might look at or go, ooh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Well, if you hadn't gotten that email, you still wouldn't know about it. So it's still a very effective tool. Monitoring for abandonment rates. So if you have a shopping cart and you put something in the cart and you abandon it, e-commerce companies can then do something and say, someone will just go straight to a discount. So some people have learned that. Hey, I'll put something in the cart, I'll abandon it, they'll send me a discount, then I can buy it cheaper. Others have gone, well, we don't want to reward them right away. So there's this whole science about abandonment cart management and so forth. Not much you can do from a website perspective, but if you have a service that you sell and you look at your analytics and you find that a lot of people show up and then they leave your site pretty quick, that's like an abandoned cart in a sense because they're not finding what they really want. So there's some detail in the numbers that can help you determine, I need to do something different on this page to keep their attention longer and get them to take an action. And then mobile commerce, that's become a huge, huge thing these days that, we're seeing more. 2 years ago, you weren't seeing as many people say, I'm going to buy straight off my phone. I'll look at it and then I'll go back and I'll do it on my desktop. As mobile commerce becomes more effective, people are using it more and more often. If you have vendors, you can ask them. They often will track a lot of things on sell-through rates, things like that, and they can give you information. So, Mark, you're in the roofing business. You have vendors that you work with. GAF, I think you mentioned, is one. They are collecting data, too, that can help you understand things about what's grabbing the attention of their end customer. They've got bigger budgets to do that research. Ask them about it. They want to help you. They want to sell more products, so see how they can help you. So the key takeaway is talk to your vendors, track and report things. You'll get to understand stuff more often. Content is king. This is probably one of the biggest chapters I would focus in on. A lot of information on the slide, but take a look at creative sources for content. You don't have to create it all yourself. And oftentimes that's where people struggle. Is they go, I know what I want to say, I just have a really hard time saying it. Or I can say it, but I can't type it. I don't have the time to do that. This is where almost every client that I've worked with struggles, is that they have the knowledge, the institutional knowledge of their industry, but they don't know how to translate that. So here's what I'd suggest is if there's somebody else in your company, put your heads together or reach out to somebody outside of your company that's a good friend that understands what you do. And maybe they know how to write really well, is narrate something to them. I always bring an audio recorder with me to my client interactions and I record it because I can capture everything and I can translate it for them. And that takes pressure off of them because they just don't have time in the day to sit down and write things. So what's important to capture? This goes back to, hey, we solved this particular problem for this customer, and you may not think twice about that. But in the eyes of the customer, especially if they wrote a review, suddenly you're like, oh my God, I didn't realize it was that impactful for them. That's something to take noteworthy of and say, how do we translate that into a compelling story for somebody? That's not just selling, but it's also, here's the problem that they brought us, here's how we worked with them, here's what the end result was, and here's what they had to say about it. Very easy thing to do, and people find that very, very relatable piece of content. We talked earlier about content that actually helps solve problems, educational. So DIY versus assistance from the outside world, whether it's the appliance videos or something else. There are subject matter experts in your world everywhere. Mark, for you, it could be that there's subject matter experts at GAF that you could interview or get quotes from that you can use as part of your content. And so this is you helping your audience by you collecting information from elsewhere. Same thing for you, Jason, when it comes to the trades folks, is understanding how you've solved the problems for your clients with retention rates, what that has saved them. That type of information you can easily use as content on your website so that people quickly get an understanding of, wow, you really do solve problems. You understand how to do this. Quality. If you wrote something and it's been on your website for 5 years, go back and look at it again. If it still has relevance today, freshen it up. There's no reason you can't. You can take that content and you can rewrite it a little bit. You can add a new example in there of what happened more recently so that it's relevant. But if the years have gone by and what was said back then no longer is relevant, think about taking that off the website. Because it says two things when it stays on the website. One is that you're not paying attention to what's changed and what's happening out there. And two, people say, are they still in business oftentimes? So if the most recent piece of content on your website is 3 years old, people will go, are they still around? Something to pay attention to. But content is what people are hungry for these days. And it can be blogs, articles, white papers, infographics, videos. Mix and match. And what you'll find is that some things work for some people, some things work for other people. if all you offer is one type of content, you're only going to meet the needs of one type of person. The person who likes videos because that's what they learn the best from, and you don't have a video, they'll find the place that has the video. If all you have is white papers, you're going to find people that like white papers. So mix it up, and the analytics will help you understand which ones of those are resonating and with whom to some degree. Understanding the buyer's journey. A minute ago I talked about how people start with kind of a question. That's the awareness stage, and this might be, how do I do this? How do I know I have this problem? Or do I need to go see somebody about this? Or those kind of questions. They're looking for information to educate themselves to determine, is it a problem, or gosh, am I just like everybody else? This is normal. Could even be about being a parent. So those are things that happen in the awareness stage. The consideration stage is when people go, now I understand enough about my problem. Who all is out there that can help me solve this problem? That's the consideration phase. And they're looking for more details, industry reports, white papers, ebooks, expert guides, webinars, testimonials, anything that showcases the fact that you are credible and capable of helping them solve the problem that they have, and they're willing to pay you to do that. The last part is the decision stage, and what that means is really that's where they're looking at comparisons. You ever buy software or something else where there's this grid on there that shows here's us and here's everybody else, and the one that you're looking at always has all the bubbles filled in and the others don't? Well, that's a comparison chart. Are you able to do something like that? And obviously you only want to create a comparison chart if you can fill in all the bubbles for your company and you know your competition can't. Or you'll pick things that show up on that comparison chart that your competitors can't provide. So deep industry expertise, local knowledge in terms of real estate brokers. You know, we live here, we are here. We're not just RE/MAX globally, but we're Oklahoma based, things like that. So those are things that you can do there. Live demos, testimonials can fit in here very well. When people get to that buying decision, they like to know, hey, he's in the oil industry. Who else do they work with out here? Oh, I know that guy. That's perfect. I have confidence now. So there's that kind of word of mouth element that fits in there. And that's too where sometimes social media can come into play too, if they see that you're engaging with people there. Ninja tool, answer the public. All right, so this is kind of scary looking, but this is a very helpful tool. It's called answerthepublic.com. If you go here, you can type in terms, and you're going to see what happens as part of this is that there's this whole wheel of questions that they come up with that people might be asking about something like mortgage loans. So, can mortgage loans be denied after closing? Are mortgage loans public record? How to shop mortgage loans? So it breaks it down into how, why, when, what, who. So if you're looking for ideas on content, this is a great place to go and just type in a couple of words and see what questions come up. And chances are you're going to recognize some of those questions going, oh, people ask me that all the time.
What site is that again?
It's called answerthepublic.com. And if you find that people are asking you those questions all the time and this helps stimulate that, and you look at your website and go, I don't have an answer for that, now you have a content idea. How can I create an answer for that? Because people are asking it. And then it marries up with, pick one of those questions and then type the question into the search engine. Who shows up for that answer? If it's your competition and not you, do you want that to happen? So it's a great tool. This one here that they're looking at now, it's just a different way of laying it out in there, because you can look at the questions alphabetically, you can look at them in the kind of the pinwheel. There's a lot of different ways, but it's a very helpful tool. I just wish they'd change the image on there. It is just kind of creepy looking.
It's appropriate for this month.
Yeah. So what about sourcing content elsewhere? There's a lot of places that you can use to look at things. And these can be by industry verticals too. Buffer is one, Flipboard's another. Anybody use either of those tools? Both are apps that you can get on your phone. Flipboard's kind of cool because it says when you first start it up, and it's a free app, it says, what sort of topics are you interested in following? Well, chances are if you're interested in what is coming up about your industry, you'll follow your own industry if that's in there, or you can follow other topics that might be related. And every day you just go to the app and it's like, oh, here's something new, here's something new, here's something new. Well, if you find interest in it, then sometimes you can share that stuff through social media too, because that's a way of sharing content that says, this is stuff I find interesting and helpful to my audience, and they start relating that to you. So you don't have to create all the content yourself. Other tools that are out there, Nuzzle, Smart Brief, Zest. So Smart Brief's a very interesting one too, because again, you can look at industry vertical type information, and this could be that there's mortgage brokers that are publishing around the real estate industry, things that your clients might find helpful. Image video creation. If you go, oh, I've always needed to create an image for my website, I just didn't want to pay a graphic designer to do it. Well, Canva is a great tool that people can use for free. Buffers, Pablo, Lumen 5. This is a really cool tool that we discovered not too long ago. They have a free version of this that will take a blog post that you have in a written form, and it will convert it into a video for you for free that you can then post on your website. Very cool, lumen5.com. Each of these are just different resources out there to help you produce content that can be attractive and grab attention and share it in different ways than normal. So here's the idea, is that maybe you have a blog post, but I mentioned a minute ago, some people don't read, they like to watch. So use Lumen 5 to take your blog post, turn it into a video blog post, and now you're satisfying the written word and the video at the same time, and without necessarily having to say a whole lot different about it. It's very cool. So the key thing I want you to walk away with here is appreciate the importance that you want to be educational and informative for people. If you think like a publisher and not as a salesperson, that actually draws people more to you than trying to say, buy me, buy me, buy me. Social media. This is something we've all come to know about. And you can, in the bottom statement, it says, prefer to do business with their banker, not just a bank. You can insert any business, any industry, with their realtor, not just a realty company, with their construction company, their general contractor, not just any general contractor. You can substitute words in there for anything, because that's what people want to do. So social media is a way to help people to get to know and like you and trust you before you've ever met in person. The more you share, and this isn't comfortable for a lot of people. I'm one of those people. I don't like to put a lot of stuff out there about myself. So you have to challenge yourself to get out of your comfort zone sometimes. But things to do is don't underestimate the power of social listening. That means that there's a lot of people that may not post themselves, but they look at Twitter, they look at Facebook, they look at Instagram, they look at all this stuff. My wife is an avid Twitter follower of the Thunder and some other organizations, and she will tell me everything that's going on out there, and I don't have to look at it myself. But, I mean, the fact is she doesn't post ever, I don't think, but she certainly listens out there and pays attention to what other people are saying. And she feels like she knows. And Damon Lane, meteorologist, he was actually at a home show we were at one time. I'm going, you pretty much know the guy. Why don't you just go up and talk to him? I could never do that. But she doesn't hesitate to talk about everything that he does with his wife and where they travel and everything else. So they're listening. They just may not engage. Quality versus quantity. Some people feel, my wife does complain about somebody she grew up with and knew that posts like 47 pictures of their kid every single day. She goes, 1 or 2 would be fine, but 47, come on. Same message when it comes to business is, think about the quality side of things. Is what you're saying something that people will really want to hear about, or are you just going, blah? Focus on quality. Don't worry about how many times you have to post. It does take time to build up a social audience. It doesn't happen overnight. Some of the most successful people now with millions of followers started with just one. And maybe it took them a year to get to 100 or 200. And then suddenly the niche gets to know them and finds them, and they become the expert in that particular niche. So just post what makes sense to you and your audience. They will find you over time. A 411 strategy, this is something we recommend so that it keeps you within kind of the framework. If we always say don't over promote, which means like, oh, hey, we've got a special right now. You see a lot of companies do that almost like a daily special. That can be kind of a turnoff to some people. If you balance your content to say, I'm going to post 6 times a week, 4 of those will be educational, informational, entertaining type of content. 1 of those will be promotional, and 1 of those will be personal. So it's like, here's what we did, or here's something about somebody in our office today, something like that. If you use that 4-1-1 strategy, we found that that's very successful in engaging and not alienating your audience. Be part of the conversation. If somebody comments on that, make sure you comment back. Respond, thank them, engage with them. Don't just let it be a one-way mechanism, because that's something that people pay attention to as well. If you get reviews, acknowledge a review. That is the most valuable and important thing that you can do, because other people who read reviews, even if it's not a great review, they want to see how you respond to problems. Do you get into a flame war with somebody, or do you say, oh my gosh, we're so sorry that happened? Even if they were wrong, the way you respond to that makes a big difference in how others perceive how you work with other people and what happens if there is a problem. So those are some key things to keep in mind. This is an example from LinkedIn, or one of the social tools, where it's just like hitting the automated congratulations on your anniversary, hope you're blah, blah, blah. That's not engagement. That's just auto-responding. Far better to pick a couple people out of the list and say something like, hey, congrats on your anniversary. What do you guys have planned for the next year? Ask them a question. That starts a conversation. That's what social media is really good for, starting conversations. So, anybody here use LinkedIn? Great business tool. Microsoft bought them about a year ago. There have been a tremendous number of changes since then, and more are still yet to come. One of the ones that's interesting is how they're integrating it into Outlook. So if you're an Outlook user in your business, maybe you're using this, maybe not. But it's something to pay attention to, is that there's an evolution happening, and you just have to stay aware of what's going on so that you don't get left behind. Facebook. Earlier this year, Facebook ran into some problems with a company called Cambridge Analytica. And then there were some other rules that came out, and they've had some big problems. In fact, this week they announced that they had a security breach of 50 million users. Well, when you've got a couple billion users, 50 million doesn't seem like a big percentage, but it's still a heck of a lot of people. That's 1/6 of the country, roughly. So there's a lot of skepticism around Facebook. Who goes there? What do we do? And then in January, they made this announcement that also said, oh, we're shifting how we're focusing our effort. We're going to focus more on you and your friends and things like that. Up until that point, it had been a tremendous boon for companies to publish content, advertise, and reach targeted audiences in a way that you couldn't do anywhere else. This change said, essentially, it's going to cost you a lot more as a company to reach the people that you want to reach. It's not that it's impossible, but it's changing. Before this, you could reach about 6% of the people that were in your network. After this, it's about 2% of the people who are out there that you want to reach will actually see your content if it's not paid content. So it really does change the game to some degree. And then more recently, more issues came up with it. People started getting on this delete Facebook campaign. What do we do about it? Interestingly enough, even this week, Google announced that if anybody was using Google Plus in here, they're sunsetting Google Plus on the consumer level. So they've said, you know what, we tried social, not our forte. So maybe good for them, but for a long time it was in limbo. Whereas this one, you've got a big following, hard to know what to do. But what we do suggest is that ways that you can engage your audience and actually help people find you is create groups, build a community. Maybe you're a car enthusiast. Maybe you're, outdoorsmen, sports, things of that. There's all kinds of groups out there where people get together and talk about things that they're interested in. Well, People love to watch home shows. People love to do things like that. So how do you create groups that say, hey, house flipping in Oklahoma or home remodeling in Oklahoma City? And you partner maybe with some of the local businesses that sell remodeling furniture. You do the work, they provide the furniture, things like this. You create a collaborative group of people that don't compete but complement each other. Now you've got kind of a resource and people come to you with questions and you're helping answer and they think, hey, that's interesting, that's helpful. Stories on Instagram are very powerful. Live video, YouTube, all of these things we find are very, very helpful. But again, it's not going to be a fit for every one of you. So don't think that because Facebook works for one, that you have to do it. It's got to make sense for you. You want to be passionate about it, because if you do it and you go, I just don't have time for it, then you get frustrated. You get anxiety over that and go, oh my God, I got to do this. Get somebody else to do it for you in that case. There's great social media experts out there that'll do it, and they'll interview you to understand what do you want to say. So if it's something you know you need to do, but you can't have the time or inclination to do it, find somebody to help you with it. Everybody's starting to shift towards video. Facebook is no stranger in this. They now have a section where you can hit watch, and next thing you know, you'll see all these videos, kind of like going to YouTube, just different. What's interesting though with this is that you can live stream video as well. Susan and I have been part of an organization that supports entrepreneurism in the city, and every once a month now on a Wednesday, our presenters are live stream on Facebook, so people that can't show up in person can watch the live stream, but they can also watch the recording of it after it's done. It's become a game changer in some cases because it allows you to stay connected to people that might have drifted off because they didn't have the time or their business changed in a way that they can't do things that they wanted to do, but they can still stay connected. Some live video tips. Build up anticipation for your live event. Make sure you're promoting it. These tools do give you the chance to promote things. They encourage you. They want to do that because that meets their needs too. They want to have content that they can share. Write a really good description. Leave them wondering, looking for more. Encourage comments as you're going through the process. Remind people about upcoming events, and more importantly, to follow you so that they'll know when those upcoming events are. So, construction industries. You know, think about the cool projects that you guys have done and how many shows are out there that show a remodeled project, but nobody knows about the ones that you've done. Well, guess what? You don't have to have a television show. You've got it right here where you can highlight some of those cool projects that you've done going, here's the before, here's the in-between, here's the after. Cool way to do it. And hey, if you got a new live event coming up, hey, we've got our big reveal coming for this next project on such and such a date, build up the anticipation around it and share that with people. And share, when do they always break to the commercial on TV? Look at your new home. Oh, now you got to wait. So, I mean, you can do that kind of anticipation on Facebook as well. Some watch it and replay. One thing I will tell you guys, when it comes to video, people will have a tolerance for so-so quality on video, but not for audio. So you want to make sure that your audio is crystal clear, even if your video isn't. Otherwise, they'll tune out real quick. One other thing, too, I'll share with you for short videos. I believe it's 95% of video on Facebook is watched without sound. Transcribing your videos, having captions, things like that in there can be very, very important because people will still watch it and read it even if they can't listen to it because maybe they're doing it at work and they don't want people to know that they're watching it. If you have staff and you've been holding back on, oh, do I give my staff access to social media? Give that some good thought because they can actually be a great resource, and you may find that there's people in there who love to do it and are really good at it. And if you give them the right guidelines around here's what we want to say, what we don't want to say, it can take a lot of burden off of you to get it done. So we talked about digital advertising earlier and some of the different mechanisms. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this one. Oftentimes you have to have a decent budget to participate in here. But again, it's going to vary by the industry. But what we found is that advertising on Google has gotten more and more expensive all the time. Facebook was pretty cheap for a long time. It's starting to get more expensive. But there are other channels out there where you can advertise. The thing is, they each serve different needs. Here's something you may not be aware of. There's a category here about where are they. There's something called geo-targeted display, IP-based targeting, and geo-fenced. Here's an example of geo-fenced advertising. You're in the market for a car. So you stop off and maybe your first dealer that you go to is the Toyota dealer. But the Subaru dealer says, I want you to come see me instead. So the Subaru dealer says, I'm going to put up a geographic virtual fence around the Toyota dealer so that when you step on their lot, you get an ad for a Subaru dealer. That's an example of a geo-fenced ad. You have to be in an app sometimes, things like that, for it to work. But if you're out there going, oh, where else do we need to go? Boom, you could see that ad. That's one reason. They can also be very effective for events, trade shows, fairs, things of that sort, so that if people step on fairgrounds, hey, be sure and stop by booth such and such today, so that you take advantage of this, or here's a coupon to stop by. Reasons for that. Restaurants, places like that can also use this to a fairly good degree. Hey, we're looking for lunch. Let's set up a perimeter. Everybody that's within 1,500 feet of this restaurant, we want to serve up our ad so that if they walk into that zone, they know that we've got a lunch special going on today, things of that sort. So lots of different choices out there. Remarketing or retargeting are usually your most affordable out of all those, but again, it depends on the industry. Legal industry uses paid advertising to a great degree. Mesothelioma is the most expensive ad type that exists out there. On a pay-per-click basis, it's thousands of dollars for a click generally. But other categories, it just varies, and it's going to vary by the market and how much competition is out there for what it is that you're doing. Some markets, like Oklahoma, the legal industry has not, in the type of legal services you provide, they have not necessarily gravitated towards paid services, which can open the door to say, the competition isn't high, so maybe it's more affordable than it would be in New York City or somewhere else. So we've talked about that. So if you've been spending money on yellow page ads or things like that in the past, that might be a reason to think about paid advertising online. Because typically what we find is, especially on pay-per-click advertising, it catches people that are at the decision-making phase of their problem, not at the top end. I need my air conditioner just died. I need to call somebody. That ad is going to have a pretty good impact on getting the phone to ring. If you don't have the ad there, there's 1,500 HVAC contractors out there that are being seen instead of you. So if you can't show up by search engine optimization, you're going to want some paid advertising to make sure that you show up for the right things. So it just depends. I think our chapter in here gives you some good examples of what you want to think about. Landing pages. Does anybody know what this term means? Jackie, you want to tell them?
So think about on your website, maybe it's not, well, I guess there's two ways to take it. Maybe it's not fully developed. You can always put up kind of like a landing page like, hey, we're working on our website, drop your email address, maybe get a little freebie or something like that. We'll send you a newsletter. Or on the flip side, maybe your website is together and you still want to give them a freebie or entice them. That way you can get them signed up for your email list. You can put that, register your email or fill out this questionnaire, get this book or whatever it may be.
Exactly. So in so many cases, when you go to visit a website, you usually go to their homepage, right? So a landing page can also be the homepage because that's the point at which you enter a website, but it can also be a different page. So if you did a search and you said, I need to schedule an appointment with my doctor, and you do a search online and there's the doctor, and underneath their main listing you see contact us, or you see about the doctor, and you click on any one of those, that just means that you've entered their website on a different landing page. You've landed there basically. Jason.
I've got a good example of this. We have to target two targets to employees constantly. We do 100 a week and get 3. So we have to target employees and we have to target customers, contractors that are in need of help. Well, three-quarters of our website was just directed towards customers. So the people, did our analytics, we found a lot of applicants were dropping because they had to search through the pages. Sometimes some of our clients, they don't even have an apply button. You have to submit a resume to an email. And, that when we made our own landing page, just the application and the employee benefits only, then we linked to that landing page, we started seeing a greater number of successful applications instantly.
Yeah. It tells, when you have a landing page that's purpose and it has an intentional purpose, search engines can resonate with that, audience can resonate with that because they don't like friction. If they have to go to the homepage on your website and then dig and it's not intuitive how to get to what the information is that they want, you lose them. But if you have a search for re-roofing contractors in Northwest Oklahoma City, and you have a landing page specifically on your website that says, we are a re-roofing expert in Northwest Oklahoma City, they search for that online, they see that, they click on it, and it says all that. They've come in somewhere other than your homepage. They look at that and they go, that's exactly what I'm looking for. They're happy that you've met their needs, you've kept the friction as low as possible. They've come in on a landing page, and the opportunity is when you have that one-to-one relationship, you can then convert better with that because they say, I get it, what do I do now? Here's how to call us, here's how to email us, whatever it is, convert. Or as Jackie said, you can even exchange other information. Great place to offer an ebook or a video or anything like that. So the whole goal is landing pages is to take the top level and turn it into a high number down here as a percentage of the 1,000 leads that might show up. The thing is, a lot of people don't think about mobile on landing pages. If it doesn't work for mobile, more than 55% of search now occurs on mobile devices. That's up from 2013, it was probably more like 40%, and it's growing every single year, so it's got to be very mobile friendly. Two-step opt-in is something that we recommend now. Sometimes you'll see forms that say, sign up for our email, sign up for this, sign up for that, and the form's right there. We're finding that people are kind of hesitant about that. But there's kind of a psychological effect that says if you say, click here to learn more and sign up, the psychology of that is that, okay, they've taken a step forward. It's not as intimidating for them, so they're going to read a little bit more, and then there's a form. So they're saying, I'm kind of taking that step forward. There's a partial commitment. We call it a micro conversion, and then you can have them fill out the form. So instead of just offering straight forms, you might need a second page that they go to with an opt-in form. Go after a specific vertical. Again, this goes back to personas, understanding your audience, retarget that, and then great landing pages are a great place for testimonials. So for whatever it is that you offer, think about that particular service or that product. That's the type of testimonial you want on that page. Not a generic one, not something about something else that you do, but about that specific service. So they don't have to go and search for that. If you have more than one, great, put it there too, just so that people see it. It could be a review that you take out and you copy and paste onto that page too, because that's specific. You're taking friction away from the process, making it easy. They see what you have to offer, they see that other people have bought it, they're happy with that. How do I sign up? That's your goal. Oh, by the way, in the book, we have a 25-point checklist for you around building landing pages, things that you want to make sure you include. So on a landing page, you want it to be a standalone, self-sufficient page. If they want to go elsewhere on the site, okay. But the goal is that you're there to solve that particular problem and give them everything that they need to solve it. So your logo, your phone number, contact information, more than one call to action. And a call to action might be a button, sign up, call us, do this. You want that in multiple places because you never know what part of the page is going to resonate most with them. But if they have to go back and look for that elsewhere, and maybe it's a longer page, then that's just friction. So it's okay to put it in multiple places on there. Make a page scannable, not that they have to read a book. People don't read on the web, they scan. And so you want to make it scan friendly so that they get the essence. Bold headlines, bullet points, things of that sort. If you have block paragraph text that's really long and looks like a legal document, unless you're a lawyer, you're probably not going to want to look at it. So don't just send people to regular web pages to the home page. One of the things that we do when we work with a client is we capture, when we start working with them, what percentage of traffic is coming to them on their home page, and after 12 months, how much lower is that number? If you have more than 50% of your traffic coming in on the home page, that's a huge opportunity. If it starts decreasing to less than 20%, that's also an opportunity, because it says, are the pages that they're landing on doing you any good? And so there's a number of things you can pay attention to, but give them something more than just the home page and you'll get more customers. 8, search engine optimization. How many of you have done anything from a search engine optimization perspective? How many are intimidated by it? It's a big fancy word, but this is really all that you're trying to do is match up. If somebody looks for a particular phrase, do you have those phrases included on that page in your website? And have you told Google that those phrases exist and that that content exists? And when that happens, over a period of time, as more people find it and discover it, Google says, oh, this is relevant content. People are looking at this. We're going to push it up in the ratings, on the rankings. That's essentially what happens. And it's just being thoughtful around understanding your customer problem, how you describe it, and then using a sitemap to tell Google that this content exists. There are 12 things that exist on a page called tags and meta tags and descriptions and things like that. Those are just the instruction sets that Google looks for. But there's also a reason for them. When you do a search and the search results come up, you see a title for something, then you see a URL beneath it, and then you see this thing called a snippet or a description. That description, you either leave up to Google to determine what to put in there, or you tell Google what to put in there. And it's far better if you tell them what to put there. You have 170 characters to work with, and it's there for you to tell people what they're going to find when they get to that page. And you want to leave a little in question so that they have a reason to click through and find it. But that's what we call metadata, and it includes keywords. Make it interesting, site structure. Again, page speed is important when it comes to all these things. But what we found from a search engine perspective, this is kind of how we found that the search engines work, is that 45% of you being found online is based on how well you've optimized your content for that particular topic, for those particular keywords. Everything else is, did you do your research? Did you do your technicals? As long as you've got the main thing there, the content, it helps. If you need technical assistance, there's plenty of resources out there. We've got some here. We've got some white papers you can download. Or if you need to, you can talk to us. But the main thing is focus on the content, tell Google that the content exists, and make it easy to read and relevant to your audience. That's what's going to matter most. There's some rules, 55 characters in a title. If you go beyond that, a lot of people will put their title tag for a page. They'll start with their company name, and then the title's so long that what they really want to say gets cut off. So flip it. Put what you want to say first, and your company name comes last, because there's plenty of opportunities for your company name to show up elsewhere. But what people see in the heading when the search results show up is what shows up in that title. And a title could be best remodeling company in South Oklahoma City, and then your company name. So they understand that's what I'm looking for, is best remodeling companies in South Oklahoma City. 55 characters is pretty much what you're limited to on that. Anything you can have more, it's just going to truncate it. Regular, relevant, helpful updates. Google likes recency. So if you build all your content at once and post it and that's all you ever do, you're going to fall in rankings over a period of time, because Google questions, are they still in business? If you post once a month, that's fine. Keep it consistent. They see that there's that consistency. They like that. They know that you're still in business, and so does your audience going, oh, they post once a month. But if you start out posting once a day, and then you have to fall back to once a month, it's not horrible, but it just changes people's expectations. It's far better to start with what you can manage and build up, as opposed to start hard and fall back. We talked about mobile devices. I already shared that stat. This is a graphic that comes from a renowned internet analyst. And it may be hard to see, but what it's saying is that we've seen a continuous downward shift in advertising spend on print, radio, and TV, and an increase in ad spend on mobile. And in fact, that opportunity for this year represents about $7 billion in ad spend opportunity, and it's a growth market. A year ago, that was actually $16 billion. And what that's saying is that the ad dollars are catching up with that. So they're shifting away from the yellow pages, they're shifting away from television commercials, and they're moving more towards desktop and towards mobile. So the neat thing is that there's demand out there. People are willing to look at ads on mobile. If you're not there and you think that that's an opportunity, it's still early in the game to where it's not that expensive, so it is an opportunity. And Google and other sources do allow you to advertise only to mobile. You don't have to do it to desktop as well, so that allows you to save money. Email. You'll see a lot of different numbers around what's the return on investment for these services. And for email, I see numbers ranging from $20 to $40 per dollar invested as a return. And it just depends on how you do it. But I mentioned earlier, we get a lot of emails. People have a different tolerance. You may actually sign up for emails from your favorite retailer because you want the discounts. You want to know what's new. So people continuously opt in. I mean, it's not small business. It's just a matter of managing it right. And your customers will tell you, are you overdoing it or are you not doing enough? The biggest problem I see with many companies is that they let their email list get old, and then they get stale, and then they don't work. They get a lot of bounces, or addresses have changed and things like that. So if you're going to invest into email, and by invest I mean your time, not necessarily money, there's a lot of free tools that you can use to do it out there, is just think about how often can I do it, what do I try to convey? If you have a blog post, if you have a blog on your website and you're putting up new information, that's a great reason to tell people. Email them, hey, we've got a new blog post, here's a link, here's what it's about. But don't give them the whole thing. Now you're encouraging them to visit your website. And so they get used to seeing things like that from you. Again, use the 4-1-1 philosophy when it comes to email. So it's not all promotion, but promotion is a small percentage of what you put. If it's educational, interesting, drives people to the website, that's going to be beneficial for you. And yes, think about making your email mobile friendly. A lot of the devices or systems like MailChimp and Constant Contact and others have mobile friendly templates you can use in there so that people don't have to scroll left and right. Just up and down is all you want them to do. It means you have to be more creative in how it looks, but people want it to work. Segment your list. That's the cool thing about mobile or about email, is that you can define unique audiences. You've got two different audiences, so you can have one that's commercial and one that's residential type audiences. For the lawyers, you can have a trust audience and you can have other legal service audiences because that's what's of interest to them. And sometimes they may cross over, so you do offer them alternatives over time to say, hey, would you also like to know about these things? And they can say yes or no, but if you segment them, then you're not just spamming them on everything that you do, but you're keeping it relevant to what they're interested in. If it were cars, somebody likes Chevy trucks, and you go, hey, we also have information on Ford trucks. They go, no, I just care about Chevy. Don't send them Ford stuff. I mean, that's all it is. White space is good, large fonts. Click-throughs, make sure that things are finger-friendly. If they have to click on something, it's easy for them to do that. See it. Short, concise subject lines. That is the hardest thing you can ever do. Whatever you come up with as a subject line, cut it in half and cut it in half again and make sure that it makes sense. If you can keep it less than 45 characters, that's in the optimum range. But think about your inbox. What shows up on the left-hand side of your inbox? How many characters? If it doesn't make sense, are people even going to notice? And so that's the hardest thing. The rest of it, you got plenty of room to work with, but the subject line, you don't have much real estate at all. This is an example of what we see in terms of click-through rates on average for companies and engagement rates. The numbers may be hard to see, but let's say on average the open rate's about 20% and the click rate's about 3%. If you have numbers that look better than that, you're doing well. If you have numbers that don't look that good, there's opportunities to improve using some of those tips. But there's some new tools out there, like Facebook Messenger, where we see open rates of 88% and click-through rates of 56%. Now, granted, Facebook Messenger, even as of last week, is starting to get some pushback on it. But there are other tools, too, that help conversion rates. There are things called chatbots that you can see on websites. You get to a website, you see a little pop-up that says, "Hi, I'm such and such," and they may have a name, or it may say, "I'm their automated assistant. How can I help you?" Those things actually have been proven to increase conversion rates or click-through rates anywhere from 25 to 400%. So they are great tools. Some of them are inexpensive, some have free trials, things like that. They're worth trying because it's just reaching people in a different way. When you don't have staff to support live phone calls, or even in this day and age, people are hesitant to call. They just don't want to call. They don't want to talk to people, but they want help. And they're willing to use technology to get the help. So could be, hey, I've got a question about, a probate situation that's coming up legal-wise. What's my best option? Well, hey, we can help you with that. Our chatbot says, hey, do you have questions about probate? Click here. And next thing you know, you're starting a conversation. Each time they answer a question, that's a micro conversion, which means that they're getting closer and closer to knowing, liking, and trusting you to pick up the phone and call or talk to you. There's a free chatbot course here if you want to learn more about it at a company called ManyChat. Go there, check it out, learn about this stuff. I think you'll find it's very fascinating, the psychology behind it and how people respond to it and why they do. Course.manychat.com. Again, you can get all the slides. You don't have to write everything down. This is probably not going to apply to many of you. Marketing automation is simply email on steroids. It's programmed so that if you take certain actions on the website, you fill out a certain form, any drip campaign that you've signed up for, it says, hey, send me regular emails. That's all part of marketing automation for large companies. It is available to any size company. It used to just be enterprise level, but now there's tools that make it available here. If you actually go to the landing page that I created for this event and you fill out that form, that's an example of marketing automation in and of itself, because you'll get an auto response, you'll get an email back and it has all these links with information that you can download for free. So that's just a simplified example of marketing automation. It's out there. This says that you can set it up to where it's based on timing, it's based on consumer behavior. There's a number of factors that make a marketing automation works. It's not going to apply to probably 95% of you in here. Just know that it exists out there, so that if you say, hey, I want to take my email marketing to a new level, there's things that can make that happen. And it works when you're asleep, which is nice. If you do decide to go that way, we always say don't try and solve for everything all at once. Just start with your most valuable service, figure out ways to automate that, and then grow from there. So last thing is measuring helps you understand where you're making progress and where you aren't, where your investment makes sense and where it doesn't. How many people in here use Google Analytics today or some type of analytics? Good. What do you find most helpful about it?
What it helps me most is on where my traffic goes, where my let's say maybe I'm not doing so good in this area, but I'm doing really good in this other area.
Mm-hmm.
So now that makes me focus more on the area and then improve the other ones so I can get an equivalency between both of them.
Has it prompted you to make changes as a result?
It has.
Okay. And then you can measure those changes?
Yeah.
Okay. What would you do if you didn't have Google Analytics?
I'll just wing it or have
Okay.
somebody to help me out.
Yeah. So we all have Google Analytics of sorts in our car, and it's the dashboard. What would it be like if you drove down the road and had no idea how fast you were going? Or that the engine light is telling you that there's a problem with the engine? Those would all be problems. And so essentially that's the equivalent of Google Analytics for your web tools, is that it's there to provide you with helpful information. It automatically captures a lot of stuff. Most people don't look at a bunch of it, but one of the things that we find is that setting it up, it doesn't start collecting the information until the day that you set it up. So you can't see anything that's already happened. But from that point in time that you set it up going forward, it collects everything. And then you can always look back at it. So even if you don't know what to do with it right now, I encourage you to set it up and get it established. You have to have a Gmail account for the most part to set up Google Analytics. Even if you never ever send or receive an email out of that Gmail account, you just have to have that account to set up analytics. That's the first big thing. And then the data that you get off of there becomes very helpful. If you use social media, some of the tools already have analytics built in. There's nothing you have to do. You just have to click on the button that goes there for your company page and says, show me the insights for Facebook or Twitter analytics, things like that. All are very helpful because, again, they give you a basis of baseline and how do we improve or what's changing so that we understand if I publish this article, will people listen? Interestingly, one of my clients I mentioned is an optometrist. They published a blog post called "My Eye Hurts, Should I Go to the Emergency Room?" And that sat out there for a while. Today, if you search for that, it's the #1 response nationally on Google. And that they didn't even try for that. They just were saying, we're going to publish information to be helpful. And now 50% of the website traffic for them comes from that alone. And we wouldn't understand that if we didn't have Google Analytics. We'd just say, okay, it's out there. But now we know it's actually driving a tremendous amount of traffic to the website. So what do we do with it? Interpreting, figuring it out, there's lots of different tools out there that you can figure out. I would recommend, too, if you're really, really interested, follow a guy named Neil Patel, NeilPatel.com. He's got a wonderful marketing blog post on digital marketing, and he's got great, really, really in-depth articles about analytics and things like that that are written in plain English. And his goal is to help the average company out there become better at what they do. Tagging URLs. I know we're out of time, so I'll just make this quick. This says that if you send something out to somebody, you have the opportunity to add a special coupon code, if you will. Like if you printed up coupons and you sent them out through traditional media, people bring them back to you, you know where they got that coupon. Well, on the internet, this is the equivalent of that. It's adding an appendage to your URL or your domain name so that when you send something out via email and somebody clicks on it in analytics, you can now see that they clicked on that and that drove your traffic back to you. So you know you're getting a return on that investment. And there's a whole structure. This short URL here will take you to the place where you can set that up. And this is just meant to be an example of the source. We advertised on radio. It was a banner ad. And we had a campaign name around Dream Home, and this was a mortgage company that did it. And so they had a specific page they were driving people to. That's all it is, and they give you this gobbledygook string of characters that you just add in when you put a link in an email. You put that behind the link so people don't see it. When they click on it, it tells you they did that. That's what it would look like. And you don't want people seeing that. And this is typically what happens when you see it. So key takeaway is metrics work when you know what you want to measure, and then find the reports that help you measure that, and then manage the results. So last item real quick, video. It is true, if a picture's worth 1,000 words, then power of video is that much more. conversions we've seen have increased substantially when it comes to video. So it's something we really encourage people to use. Ad spending is huge. Last item here says, after watching a video, 64% of users are more likely to buy a product online. Think about my appliance part example. Would I have bought that part if I didn't know how to understand if it was the right part and how to put it in? Maybe not. So the fact that they had a video, think about how many videos do you have to produce for every single appliance part? It's a lot. But they do it, and next thing you know, they're selling all the parts. YouTube is actually the #2 search engine behind Google out there. So if you don't find what you want on Google, a lot of people will go right next to YouTube and look for it there. So legal industry, this could be huge in your area in helping demystify legal terms, processes, and what's involved. The biggest reason people don't pick up the phone and call an attorney, they're worried about what it's going to cost, or they're worried about being intimidated. Demystify that process through videos, get them to know, like, and trust you through the videos, they'll start coming to you. Common search phrases, how much mortgage can I afford? Look here, 53,400 videos on mortgage loans. Title insurance, 613,000 videos. Credit score, 390,000 videos. So there's no shortage of videos out there, but again, it's about optimization, it's about having the right topic, making it relevant, and if it's local, it's a local problem. Are you the guy who shows up, or are you the sprinkler guy in LA who's solving my problem and I can't call you locally? So, Periscope, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all offer video capabilities. You can create one video and publish it on all channels so that you get your audience wherever they happen to be shopping. And you can do it right from your phone. And that is the cool thing. People do not have high production expectations for video out there, especially on how-to videos or things like that. It doesn't have to be a professional production. The audio just has to be good. And if you have to, add captions to it. And each of these tools are now starting to let you do all those sorts of things. So it's very cool what you can do. Your first video will be your worst video, and that's okay. Look at a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk out there. He has a wine website that he had with his family. They did about $4 million in sales when he took over. He did a wine video. Kind of had a really offbeat sense of humor, how to pair up wine with different things. Very sarcastic guy. 5 years later, he owns a media company that's worth $500 million, and his wine business does over $40 million a year in business. And he'll tell you, my first video was my worst, but with practice, you get better with anything. So, and now on LinkedIn, you can add videos. This young lady posted a video, 1-minute introduction to who she is. She was looking for a job, saying, here's what I do. Well, actually, we have it on here, but I won't play it. She got actually hired by LinkedIn as a result, but she got a lot of interest from people because she did that. So if you're a pioneer and you take advantage of tools that are first introduced, you can become the expert on those tools to other people and take you into places you never expected. So those are the 12, 13 things that we wanted to share with you this morning. My hope is that you walk away with at least one item that you can use to help boost your business, grow your business. Maybe there's more than one item. If you have questions, I encourage you to go to the website, download the things that I shared, and that's just wsi-summit.com/BBB. That's the landing page. If you want a copy of the book, it's yours. Please take one. If you need my card, you're welcome to take that. And I'm here, for probably another 30, 45 minutes if you have questions.
So can we give Gunnar a round of applause?